This was the primary instruction from Jesus concerning the rapture. Have you ever imagined what it would have been like to listen as Jesus spoke of something so remarkable, so transformative, that it would challenge the very core of your belief? Picture yourself standing among his disciples, listening as he unveiled a truth that has been widely overlooked by the world, a pledge of a future instant so significant that it will distinguish the faithful from the unprepared, the vigilant from the distracted, and the ready from the oblivious. This represented Jesus' primary instruction concerning the rapture, a message whispered in open view, yet concealed within the depths of his wisdom. From the moment he uttered these words, the summons to be prepared ceased to be a mere suggestion and became a spiritual imperative, a vital connection for every believer. And today I want to transport you back to that moment, to uncover what Jesus genuinely said, what he truly intended, and how his instruction is applicable to you right now, in your life, in this very instant. For the rapture is not simply a distant prophecy, it is a divine promise, a future reality that holds eternal significance. Comprehending this primary instruction is not merely an academic exercise, it is a transformational one. It is designed to awaken your spirit, ignite your faith, and guide you into a posture of readiness, anticipation, and hope. As we explore Jesus' words together, you will perceive the urgency in his voice, the clarity of his purpose, and the depth of his love. You will discover why he wanted his followers to live differently, to prepare themselves in a manner that transcends mere religious routine. This is more than prophecy. This is a call to awaken, to embrace a life fully surrendered, fully alert and fully alive to the promise of his coming. Today, I invite you to open your heart, to listen closely, and to see the rapture through the eyes of Jesus himself, the first instruction that changes everything for those who believe. When considering the rapture, our minds often conjure images of an abrupt, spectacular occurrence that will one day unfold in the skies, separating believers from the world. But to genuinely understand Jesus' primary instruction, we must return to the very moment he spoke it, to the context in which his words were delivered. The world around him was tumultuous, filled with political turmoil, religious hypocrisy, and the oppressive weight of human sin in every corner of society. His disciples were attentive, attempting to comprehend the significance of his parables and struggling to view the future from an eternal perspective. Yet even among them there was confusion, hesitation, and a difficulty in seeing beyond the present. And in this very setting Jesus began to speak, not of kingdoms constructed by men, nor of temporary victories, but of a divine event that would surpass all human understanding. His first instruction on the rapture was concealed in open view. It was delivered not as a spectacle, but as a vital connection, a warning, and a promise, all enveloped in his characteristic clarity and authority. Many would have overlooked it if not for an attentive ear and a heart willing to understand. Jesus spoke to reveal the importance of readiness, vigilance, and faithfulness. He knew that human attention is fleeting, that the heart is easily diverted, and that even the most devoted can grow complacent. His primary instruction was not a prophecy to be memorized like a historical fact. It was a call to action, a divine command to live in a manner that reflects eternity. The disciples may not have fully grasped every word, but he planted a seed of awareness, a seed that would cultivate anticipation, hope, and preparation for generations to follow. And it is this seed that we are called to nurture today, for the rapture is not a matter of speculation. It is a divine reality, a promise from the one who holds time, history, and eternity in his hands. Comprehending this context allows us to grasp why Jesus' words are urgent and why disregarding them is not a viable option. He was speaking to those who would follow him, those who would carry his message to the ends of the earth, and ultimately to you. This hidden context also reveals the depth of his love. Jesus did not unveil the rapture to create fear or confusion. He revealed it to prepare his children, to awaken the hearts of those who would listen, and to instill a state of readiness that transcends human comprehension. In a world that changes daily, where uncertainty is ever present, his instruction shines as a beacon, guiding believers to remain steadfast, alert, and unwavering in their faith. To miss this context is to miss the essence of his message, but to understand it is to see his wisdom, his purpose, and his desire for us to live fully prepared. The hidden context reminds us that the rapture is not just a distant event to hope for. It is a present call to live in light of eternity, to let every day be influenced by the knowledge that Jesus could return at any moment. When Jesus first addressed the rapture, his language was intentional, exact, and imbued with a significance that goes beyond the literal interpretation. He used words that captured both the immediacy of the moment and the eternal scope of what was to come. He spoke of vigilance, readiness, and the unforeseen nature of his return. "Therefore be ready, for the Son of Man will come at an hour you do not expect," he said, words that were simple yet layered with divine wisdom. These were not casual observations. They were instructions meant to shape lives, to awaken hearts, and to instill a sense of urgency that would resonate through the centuries. Every phrase he spoke carried a spiritual weight that demanded attention. The true meaning of his words lies in understanding that readiness is not a passive state. It is not merely waiting or hoping to be included. It is a posture of the heart, a way of living that reflects the holiness, devotion, and faithfulness he desires from his followers. To be prepared is to be spiritually alert, to live each day with the consciousness that the eternal converges with the temporal, and to allow your life to be governed by the principles of his kingdom rather than the fleeting concerns of the world. Misinterpretations are common, as many have reduced his instruction to mere speculation or timelines, but its essence is relational, personal, and transformational. Jesus was calling his disciples, and he is calling us, to a life of engagement, of continuous preparation, and of unwavering hope. He spoke in symbols and parables that hinted at deeper truths. The oil lamps kept burning, the servants remaining vigilant, the bridegroom returning unexpectedly. All were images designed to convey spiritual readiness and the necessity of a watchful heart. These were not abstract narratives, they were mirrors for our lives today. They remind us that the rapture is not an event to be feared, but a reality to be anticipated, and that our response must be rooted in faith, discernment, and the active pursuit of righteousness. Every word he spoke was layered with love, urgency, and a call to action. When we listen closely to his primary instruction on the rapture, we realize it is both comforting and challenging. It is comforting because it assures us of his return and his faithfulness to gather his people. It is challenging because it demands vigilance, self-examination, and a commitment to live in a state of readiness that is often uncomfortable in a world promoting ease and complacency. To grasp the true meaning of his words is to align our lives with his purposes, to awaken from spiritual slumber, and to embrace the life of expectancy he intended for every believer. The depth of his instruction calls us not just to understanding but to transformation, to let his words shape our daily walk, our decisions, and our relationship with him. Jesus' instruction on the rapture was not a singular event. He elaborated on it by painting a picture of what life would resemble as the time approached. He spoke of signs, both subtle and overt, that would reveal the season, yet he warned that many would overlook them, blinded by distraction, doubt, or the allure of the world. Wars, rumors of wars, famine, persecution, and lawlessness were all markers he identified, but even more than these external signs, he emphasized the spiritual conditions of the heart. The rapture is not initiated solely by global events. It is contingent upon the preparedness of God's people, those who are watchful, prayerful, and walking in obedience. Jesus called his disciples to examine themselves, to consider the state of their hearts, and to live as those who know that eternity is nearer than the next sunrise. He spoke often of vigilance, of being awake while others sleep. The servants who kept their lamps burning were not passive. They were active in their faith, ready to respond at a moment's notice. This vigilance is not just about waiting, it is about living with purpose. It is about a heart attuned to God's voice, a life aligned with his will, and a faith that is unshaken by trials. Jesus warned of deception, of those who would try to lead believers astray, yet the true sign of readiness is not only a knowledge of prophecy, but an intimate relationship with him. Those who are ready are marked by their love for him, their obedience to his word, and their discernment of the times. Holiness is another condition Jesus emphasized. The world may grow lax, careless, and indulgent, but his followers are called to a life of purity, integrity, and devotion. The rapture does not reward casual belief or half-hearted commitment. It is a gathering of those who are devoted, those who walk faithfully in the Spirit, and those whose lives reflect the character of Christ. Every day becomes a test, a chance to prove that our faith is genuine, that our hearts are aligned with God's purposes, and that we are ready to meet him at any moment. Jesus made it clear, readiness is not optional. It is a divine expectation, a spiritual posture, and a vital connection for those who desire to be with Him when He returns. The signs and conditions leading to the rapture are both a warning and an invitation. They warn of the dangers of distraction, of living in complacency, and of missing the moment when eternity intersects with time. They invite us into deeper devotion, into a faith that is alive, alert, and expectant. The rapture is a promise of hope, a call to awaken, and a divine opportunity to live in the reality of eternity, even now. Jesus' primary instruction is not just a prophecy, it is a roadmap for living a life that anticipates His return, a life vibrant with faith and prepared for when the moment arrives. The early believers were not simply idle listeners to Jesus' teachings. They studied, meditated, and lived in light of the instructions He had provided. They comprehended the urgency, even if the specific details remained a mystery. In the letters of Paul, Peter, and John, we find repeated calls to be vigilant, to live holy lives, and to anticipate the return of Christ. Paul writes to the Thessalonians with words that echo Jesus' primary instruction, reminding them that the Lord will come like a thief in the night and urging them to stay alert, sober, and faithful. The early church grasped the significance of readiness, understanding that the rapture was not a distant story but an immediate reality that shaped their behavior, choices, and devotion. They understood that faithfulness was an active principle, not a passive state. It was insufficient to merely believe. They had to live in a state of expectation. They were called to be watchful, to pray continually, and to encourage one another in love so that none would grow weary or lose hope. The early believers understood that the rapture was intertwined with the character of God and the readiness of His people. It was a divine convergence where eternity would break into time, and only those whose hearts were prepared would enter fully into His promises. Their understanding was both practical and relational. They were aware of the world's corruption, yet they refused to be consumed by fear or despair. They saw the signs, they lived faithfully, and they held fast to the hope of meeting Jesus face to face. This understanding was passed down through generations. The instruction Jesus gave was never meant to be hidden forever. The apostles, inspired by the Spirit, ensured that the early church would grasp the importance of living with anticipation. They emphasized prayer, holiness, accountability, and community. They highlighted that the rapture is not just an event to be anticipated in isolation, but a communal experience that requires spiritual unity, encouragement, and the cultivation of love. The early church's comprehension of Jesus' primary instruction reveals the depth of His message. It was not about speculation or curiosity, it was about shaping a people who live in alignment with God's will, who are ready for the eternal reality that could arrive at any moment. By studying how the early believers understood the rapture, we gain insight into how we should approach it today. We see that it is not a theoretical concept, but a living truth meant to influence every aspect of our lives. Jesus' primary instruction is as relevant now as it was then. It calls us to vigilance, to holiness, to prayer, to discernment, and to a life lived in hope and expectancy. It challenges us to examine our hearts, our priorities, and our readiness for the moment He returns. The early believers teach us that the rapture is not just a future event. It is a present reality, shaping our choices, our character, and our devotion to Jesus each day. Comprehending Jesus' primary rapture instruction is only meaningful if it transforms our daily lives. The call to readiness is a call to action, a daily invitation to align our hearts with His and to embrace a life that reflects His holiness, love, and vigilance. Every morning becomes an opportunity to ask ourselves, am I living in a way that would welcome Jesus at any moment? Am I spiritually awake, alert, and prepared to meet Him face to face? Living in light of His instruction is about cultivating a faith that is visible, practical, and transformative. It involves allowing every decision, every interaction, and every choice to be shaped by an awareness of the eternal, rather than by the fleeting concerns of this world. Jesus' instruction calls us to vigilance in prayer. Prayer is more than words. For us, it is communion with Him, a conversation that strengthens our hearts, sharpens our discernment, and keeps us attuned to the movement of the Spirit. A life of prayer fosters spiritual alertness, allowing us to recognize the signs of the times, to hear His voice amidst the noise of the world, and to respond with faith and obedience. Prayer, coupled with the study of Scripture, becomes a shield and a lamp, illuminating our path and fortifying our hearts against complacency and distraction. Holiness and obedience are central to living in readiness. Jesus did not instruct his followers to be passive observers of prophecy. He called them to be active participants in the life of God. This means living with integrity, humility, and love, reflecting his character in every interaction. It means turning away from sin, seeking forgiveness, and walking in the Spirit with a heart devoted fully to him. The world may offer comfort in compromise, but true readiness comes from the courage to follow Jesus wholeheartedly, to prioritize his kingdom above all else, and to live in a state of perpetual expectancy. Community also matters in preparation. Jesus did not call his followers to solitude in anticipation. He built a family, a church, a body of believers who encourage one another, hold one another accountable, and remind each other of the hope that lies ahead. By surrounding ourselves with those who share a passion for his return, we strengthen our vigilance, cultivate mutual encouragement, and live out the practical realities of his teaching. The rapture is a personal encounter with Christ, but it is also communal, and we are called to prepare together, to inspire one another, and to uplift those who may grow weary or distracted. Living today in the light of Jesus' instruction is a life of balance, being aware of the signs but not consumed by fear, living in holiness but not in isolation, embracing anticipation but not in anxiety. It is a life grounded in the certainty of his promises, guided by his Spirit, and focused on eternity. Every day becomes a practice of readiness, every choice an opportunity to live as those who expect him, and every moment a chance to deepen our intimacy with Jesus. This is the transformative power of his primary rapture instruction. It changes how we live now, so we can be ready for what is to come. Jesus' primary instruction on the rapture is more than a prophecy. It is a vital connection, a summons, and a pledge that continues to resonate through the ages. He spoke not to instill fear, but to awaken, not to confuse, but to prepare, and not to entertain curiosity, but to transform lives. From the hidden context of his teaching to the clarity of his words, from the signs and conditions leading to the rapture to the example of early believers, every aspect of this instruction invites us into a deeper relationship with him and a higher standard of spiritual readiness. The rapture is not merely a future event to anticipate, it is a present reality that shapes how we live today. Jesus calls us to vigilance, holiness, prayer, discernment, and community. He calls us to examine our hearts, realign our priorities, and live in a way that reflects his kingdom. To embrace his instruction is to live fully awake, fully aware, and fully devoted, knowing that the moment of his return could come at any time. As you reflect on this message, let it stir your heart and renew your commitment to live in readiness. Let it inspire hope, ignite faith, and deepen your love for Jesus. The promise of the rapture is not distant, it is imminent, and it carries eternal significance for those who are prepared. Every day is an opportunity to respond, to live faithfully, and to walk in anticipation of the greatest reunion imaginable. Jesus' first rapture instruction is a divine invitation to be ready, to be watchful, and to live with eternity in view. Therefore, let us not procrastinate, let us not waver, and let us not grow weary. Let us live each day as those who are ready to meet him, knowing that his return will be glorious, transformative, and eternal. This is the message he gave, the call he issued, and the hope he offers to every believer who chooses to embrace it fully. Live in the light of his instruction, and be ready, for the Son of Man is coming, and his promise is true.